Solace and Sanctuary by Ignium 807. Chapter 6. Destiny likes to offer men choices. Unclear as it may be through mortal eyes, they are there all the same. Some are too small for anyone to notice their impact. A kind word here or there, the decision to buy from one farmer over another. Other choices bring castles crumbling down. Geralt has seen more than his fair share of cataclysmic decisions. Far too often he has chosen wrong. The world has barely begun a long afternoon when he awakes, Jaskier by his side. It should be an afternoon like any other, but something is off. The air is heavier than normal. His heart beats slowly even for a witcher, setting away a steady rhythm as his chest rises and falls within the moment. A fragile moment. He senses the hands of fate on his shoulders. Jaskier will sleep until the evening. Geralt is sure. Any excitement before dawn is bound to knock him out for a day. His heartbeat is louder than Geralt's, faster. His breath stirs the lock of hair that has fallen into his face. Geralt watches it, rapt as the hands press down harder. They crush him down, they pull him up, they tug and tease, and something deep within him shouts, "Now!" Geralt rises. He makes a choice. Lethenhove does nothing to hide his tracks. He borrows a horse from the stable and rides straight west for an hour after his run-in with Geralt. Several townspeople see him as they go about their morning tasks, and his horse leaves an obvious trail of prints in the freshly fallen snow. A blind man could track him. Geralt will have no difficulties. He settles down in a clearing and sets about making a fire. Hours pass, but Lethenhove doesn't mind. Decades of monster hunting teach a man how to wait. In spite of the fire, cold has tinged his fingers blue by the time hoofbeats reach his ears. They approach at a canter, then slow to a plodding walk as the rider makes his way through the trees. With no other sounds to disturb his focus, Lethenhove can hear the rider's breathing, the rustle of his armor, his slow, slow heartbeat. Geralt swings off of Roach and moves to the fire, his boots crunching in the snow. He could be quiet if he wanted. A silent, unseen hunter. He doesn't bother. This prey left a trail. This prey expects a fight. "I won't make it easy for you," Lethenhove says. He feels Geralt's eyes on his back, but the other witcher gives no response. Instead, he circles the fire and crouches down across the flames, coiled like a spring, like a predator ready to lunge. Lethenhove touches the sword at his hip. He was caught unawares in the manor that morning, unarmed and drunk on contentment. The same mistake will not be made again. "Why are you here?" Geralt asks. The words are more drum than voice, thick with the deep thrum of destiny. Wild animals posture in the face of danger, hoping that their exaggerated size will scare away any beast wishing to attack. Lethenhove's first instinct is much the same. He wants to draw his sword, to crack a dirty joke about the women of Lettenhove, or better yet, the pretty bard that lords over them all. Wants to make himself bigger and scarier than he already is, wants to posture, because the core of him, the animal within him, knows that this is not a fight he will win. He fights those instincts down. Lethenhove knows the weight in Geralt's voice, knows what moments like this can do to the course of nations. The White Wolf is a being of destiny, and destiny has made her choice. It is time Lethenhove made his. "To rest," he answers. The air is as thick as the canopy of snow above them. Geralt's eyes consume him in the flicker of the fire. "These people are innocent." The lips that move are Geralt's, but the voice belongs to fate. "I know. I mean them no harm." Geralt's head tilts, scrutinizing. "Why?" "They were kind to me," Lethenhove says, "without reason to be. They offered a place to ride out the winter, and I accepted." This is met with a solemn nod. All witchers understand the need for shelter, especially in the winter months. "And Jaskier?" Geralt asks. Lethenhove hears the unspoken question clear as if it had been shouted across the scant space between them. "Do you mean him harm?" Lethenhove pauses. His breath sparks in his lungs, spreading from his chest to crawl across his skin until his entire self trembles with a bright, insistent warning. His simple "no" dies on his lips. Memory drops over his vision like a tapestry. A viscount, a pair of trousers a few inches too short, a long red strip of skin raised and angry on the body of a man who never seems to stop smiling.
He has a scar on his left ankle, Letho says. A knife wound that goes up the calf.
He waits for a nod of recognition, then asks,
Who put it there?
A Nilfgaardian,
Geralt says evenly.
Where is he now?
Dead.
Letho pulls a dagger from his belt and spins it idly, letting the firelight catch on its edges.
And his family?
A small crease appears between Geralt's brows, the only question he is willing to ask.
Do any of his children still breathe? Do his siblings? His friends?
Geralt shakes his head, but not in answer.
I wasn't that thorough.
The dagger falls from Letho's hands and lands point down in a piece of wood by his feet.
I would have been.
Neither man moves. Even the horses are silent. The world itself is still.
I would have tracked down the family, he says. Parents first if they were still alive, then the siblings. I'd kill the kids quickly, but make the wife watch. She would get the same scar up the calf, deep enough to hit bone, deep enough to bleed, but not enough to kill her. I would let the animals take care of that.
Tension drops out of Geralt in waves. He drops his crouch and sits cross-legged on the snowy ground, hardly seeming to notice the cold. When he next speaks, it is with his own voice.
That was quick.
He offers Letho a wry grin, the first in many years.
Took him at least a few weeks to make Lambert want to kill for him, and you know how Lambert feels about killing.
Humor replaces the fire in Geralt's eyes.
What did he say to you?
Letho is tempted for a moment to tell some ridiculous tale just to get under Geralt's skin. But only for a moment. No story he spins would work nearly as well as the truth.
He held my knife to his throat and dared me to kill him. A muzzle ticks in Geralt's jaw. Emotion roils off him, a cacophony of smells that collide and conflict, declaring confused, angry, concerned, fond, baffled, loving, before settling down and deciding on frustrated. Tough fucker, Letho says. Then that same muzzle ticks again.
I'm going to kill him myself.
Geralt growls. No, you won't.
An acid look.
Of course not.
Geralt lets out the sigh of a man who has had this conversation with himself 100 times over.
But I won't fuck him for a week.
A smirk spreads across Letho's face.
You won't do that either.
There is a click of metal on metal, a creak, soft footfalls on hard wood, and breaths that come so quiet even a witcher would strain to hear them. A figure walks into the room. Destiny does not walk with him. Geralt takes off his snow-soaked clothes, sets his shoes by the fire, and slides into bed beside Jaskier, who is still sound asleep. The curtains are drawn against the evening sun. It casts a mix of maroon and gold over the manor at Lettenhove, painting its eaves with blood and finery. Neither lover notices. Fate's cold hands have long since slipped from Geralt's shoulder. He is weightless now, like the bird he wears around his neck, worryless as the man who sleeps beside him. Destiny is not in Lettenhove this night. She has other lives to tangle, other kingdoms to topple. She has choices to offer, mistakes to witness. She holds out rope with an uncaring arm and lets men have their will. There is nothing more for her at Lettenhove. Choices will be made in the coming months, yes, but none that need her soft touch, her flair for the dramatic. She held out the rope this night, and not one man touched it. It hangs at her side now untied, waiting for the next hero or king who thinks he can decide the fate of the world better than the last. He never can. Destiny will come for Lettenhove, but now, with this night, with this choice, she waits. Men of war gathered in this manor, and together they chose peace.